We are live. As Wayne and I are wrapping up, we're going to give it a minute, see who all logs in. Wayne is coming. This time I have a phone stand. Of course, it is Sunday, so not many people are going to be logging in. When does football season start? Like 3 weeks, right? So I'm live, just waiting for people to log in. My editor tells me I need to go live a lot more often. It'll get us more subs. So I'm going live more often. I think I'm going to start doing like a weekly live talk to the professor meeting, I guess. Wouldn't really be like a podcast. It would just be like a YouTube live. We're going to go live at X time. So thank you for logging in. Wayne and I are wrapping up here at the Venetian, and we figured we were going to go live, answer any questions, tell you guys how it was. Meetup game went great. The mixed PLO is really good. The small blind jackpot took a little bit for the dealers to get used to it, but once they got used to it and we worked out the kinks, it turned out great. So again, this is completely open question for anybody. Anybody who's logged in right now, you can ask me a question, you can ask Wayne a question. I have the red eye, so I'm going to play at the Venetian today again, and then end up flying home. But overall, it was really good. We had 2 tables going of mixed PLO. We had mixed PLO going the day before our meetup game and mixed PLO going the day after our meetup game. And if you're a local in Vegas, we're going to start like a mixed PLO group chat, if you will, to have mixed PLO every Friday. I believe at like 2 o'clock, I think is the consensus here at the Venetian. And let me tell you guys, the room is really good. And more important than the room, the poker room manager, Tommy, listens to all feedback. So like one of the complaints that we ran into was that the tables are too low. So apparently in the next week, they're going to be raising them about 3 or 4 inches, which will make a pretty significant difference because I'm 6 foot. I noticed it was a little uncomfortable to sit in the 1 in the 8 seat or 1 in the 9 seat. It was even one of those thoughts where I was like, if I'm grinding for 12 hours, which I did grind for 12 hours yesterday, started off stuck 3,400, by the way, but managed to get unstuck and in the positive. Vlog coming out next week, some huge pots and some deep analysis, cash analysis in it, both in Big O. Had some big pots in Big O, had some big pots in PLO4, and had some good pots, big pots in double board bomb pots as well. And so there's going to be a good mix of some analysis. Again, if you guys want to ask us any questions, Wayne is finishing up in the bathroom and he's going to be coming over here, so you can shoot questions to me, shoot questions to Wayne. Again, I think I'm going to do this weekly. I don't know. I want your guys' feedback. As you guys know, I'm always open to feedback. I love my haters and I love my lovers. So, but yeah, the Venetian here is great. Our next meetup game at the Venetian, or not our next meetup game, Wayne's next meetup game that I'm going to happen to be attending, I think is on September 13th or September 12th. It's whatever that Friday is, because we're already going to have the game with an interest list going throughout. Plus, it's going to be on Poker Atlas, the mixed PLO. The small blind jackpot is something that can be done with Hold'em as well as PLO. We worked out all the kinks with it, where if you get up and you go have a smoke break or a doobie break or a bathroom break and you come back and you've missed an orbit, you know, what's the standard procedure for the small blind jackpot? And let me just tell you guys real quick what the small blind jackpot is. Whether you're playing Hold'em or PLO, you put an ante on the button, say for example $10. The only person who can win it is a small blind by winning the pot by scooping the pot. So in mixed PLO, it's a little harder to scoop in double board bomb pots and a little harder to scoop in Big O. So it accumulates quite a bit. And if you win the pot, you win what's on the button. If you don't win the pot, the button moves and then somebody antes up next time. Danny McBride. And so there was a couple of times where we got it up to like 300, 270, 240. It would hit 200 a couple times in a night, and it does influence and it does check out the action. It changes the action. So imagine if you're playing Hold'em, for example, and you have a $10 small blind jackpot. Eventually there's going to be $100 or $200 on there where the small blind is going to want to take a shot at it, and then it starts coming into what kind of things are they playing with. Mujitsu was playing PLO 6 last night, ran about as bad as you could. The fish at the table were in God mode against me. I had a gentleman that was a Houston player yesterday who absolutely barbecued me. I yesterday sat down. I was in the game for 3,400 on a 125 pretty quickly. I think it was like within 2.5 hours. Matter of fact, Wayne was in the tournament. He won the tournament, by the way. Wayne was in the tournament that he ended up winning. And I remember texting him and I said, how many people are left in the tournament? How much can I register? When's the last time I can register? Because at one point I was going, I'm stuck so much in this game, maybe the only way I can get unstuck today is by getting first. And then I was like, this guy here who has been playing back at me all day, I actually can get unstuck with him. And I ended up winning a $3,200 pot while I was playing against him. There was $60 in the pot to start on the flop, and then it ended up being $3,200. So vlog will be out next week for that. But yeah, running bad in PLO 6 is never fun. That's not cool. But in any case, the small blind jackpot is something that changes the dynamics of the game quite a bit. And I'm pretty excited that the Venetian is approved to do the small blind jackpot on all the tables. We're just working out the kinks with Tommy. But yeah, say for example, there's 80 bucks on the button. You go up and you have a smoke and you come back. Now there's like 150 in the button and you're coming in middle position. We changed it to where the minute you come back, not only do you post the blinds that you missed, but you also post what the small blind jackpot is right away, and that makes you eligible for it. And on the 125, after playing it all day yesterday, we figured we're going to keep the same buy-ins because the 1-2 PLO here at the Venetian is a 100 to 1K max, so it's really good to have a 1K buy-in where like the Aria is a 125 with a $500 max. So if somebody runs it up to 3K, it's a little bit harder to get some of your money back. And but we decided on the 125 PLO mix, it's going to be $10 small blind jackpot, $10 double board bomb pot. And then in the 5-5 PLO mix, which we actually had a list for that as well last night with 8 people, and I think it's going to continue to populate and continue to grow, we figured probably like a $15 double board bomb pot and a $15 small blind jackpot would be sufficient, because that $15, first of all, for the double board bomb pot, it'd be $120 to pot it versus $80. Will build up quite a bit quicker. And then also on the small blind jackpot, yeah, in the situations where, like last night, where we had it up to like 280 or 300 bucks, it'd be like 450 instead. So it does, in fact, adjust the play. Dale says, I suggested to Wayne that we have a dealer's choice Omaha mix, 4-card, 5-card, high-low, etc. Yeah, well, the mix that we have here that we did at the meetup game is the same mix that we did when we did the meetup game at the Hustler Casino 2 years ago. That game now runs regularly at Hollywood Park, and not only does it run regularly, it ends up having a wait list, like 2 or 3 tables. Braids are crooked. Well, I mean, I don't know. But I don't know if I'd get my money back on the braids. Every person that I've walked by that has had cornrows done has complimented me on cornrows. But I always appreciate the feedback. But yeah, Yodi hair, African hair braiding here in Vegas does an absolutely amazing job. Most of the time, if you get cornrows done, and I don't know if you've ever had cornrows done, word consumer, but if you get cornrows done, they'll stay in for about 10 to 14 days if you're a white person. If you're black, because your hair is physically different, I never knew that until I got cornrows. They can stay in usually for 3 to 4 weeks. But if you're a white guy and you get cornrows done, usually about 10 days is what you're going to get out of it. You get it done at Yodi African braids, they'll stay for about 3 weeks if you really want them to. It's just a matter of how much is your head going to itch and do that. So I don't know about getting my money back, but Yodi hair braiding is amazing. I prefer poor women personally. I'm not even really sure what that means. Nice braids, fam. Don't let them hate. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. You know what, Keith? I love my haters just like I love my lovers because they watch anyways just to try trolling me, and that's okay. You're allowed to do that. I've been playing some PLO 8 Big O tourneys, but find they're really frustrating due to how hard it is to chip up because of chopped pots. How does cash and tournament strategies for them differ? That's a great question, Mijitsu. So there's a few situations that you run into, and I'll even get a few examples. And first of all, how much do they charge? I think the first time I went, they charged $75. This time when I went, the girl tried charging me 65. I always pay her 100 because my hairdresser back in Marquette, who is great by the way, she would charge me probably like 100 or 120. And these come in a little bit tighter. But yeah, so the difference between cash and tournaments for chipping up, you know, the big thing on PLO 8 or Big O tournaments is finding ample opportunities to three-quarter somebody. So for example, same thing in cash. You have to start factoring what are some hands that players are going to call me on the turn or on the river. The other difference is if you have enough equity, sometimes you just have to run with it on the turn in a tournament, which is not what a lot of people want to hear if registration is still open. Wayne, are you joining me, by the way? But if you're late in a tournament, you might want to start playing a little bit more pot control unless you have a significant chip advantage over your opponent. But I'll give you an example. Like yesterday I was playing Big O. I had King 8, Ace 4, X. The board was like King 8, 5. I potted it. My opponent called. He was the original raiser. Instantly I'm putting him on a low. The turn comes a deuce, gives me the second nut low, and it brings out clubs, and I think I have like 7 high clubs or something like that. And I ended up betting 3/4 pot, and he called, and then the river was something insignificant. Didn't change the low, didn't change the high, and he checked. And at that moment, you have to decide what is going to call me that I can scoop versus do I want to apply pressure to try getting somebody off of 3/4 of a pot. So for example, if I had Ace 3 King there, I would just lead with a full pot size bet because if he has Ace 3 with no pair, it's hard for them to call. If he has 2 pair there, it's still a little tough for him to call. But because I had 2 pair with an Ace 4, you can value bet a small amount, a very small amount. I think at the time there was like $250 in the pot. You can either check it at that point, or you can bet something like 50 to 60 bucks because you know if they call, they either have the same low like Ace 4, or they might have nut low with nothing else. But if you have the nut low, then you can apply pressure. So to answer your question, Mujitsu, it becomes a decision on the river when you start applying pressure to get people to fold half the pot in fear that they're going to get 3/4, and then what hands can you bet where your opponent's going to call where you get 3/4. Now it happened my opponent had Ace Deuce 4 5, and I actually said to him when I bet, I said the only hand I think that you can call me here with is Ace Deuce 4 5, and he just like looked at me, and then he called. But it wasn't a huge bet. It was like 40, 50 bucks. So I've been playing. How much did they charge? Okay, so we're just going over how the Venetian went. How do you think it went?
I think it went great. Everyone really liked it for the most part. I mean, anytime you have a mix, with multiple games, there's going to be some people that says, they would prefer this game over this game. Maybe the amounts they would prefer to see different. But I would say probably 90% of people really enjoyed the mix, and the limits we had. So I think, as you mentioned, we're going to probably advertise it as a Friday at 2 o'clock start for any of you folks that are either locals or visiting. You can either message Josh or myself, and we'll go ahead and add you. We have a WhatsApp group chat. Just we use that to coordinate games because we obviously have meetup games next month, October and December. But even though you might think so, we don't live here. Even though we are here more months, some months more than we are where we actually live. But I think everything went well. We had the tournament yesterday, which I was fortunate enough to win, which is pretty cool. It was a $400 PLO tournament with a $100 bounty, And that was something I talked with Tommy about, adding the bounty. I think it just adds, similar to the small blind jackpot, I think it just adds a little bit extra spice. And people are more willing to rebuy, when they maybe get a rebate by winning a bounty or two. So I think that went really well. And
Yeah, there's a couple players who busted out. I busted out in less than a half an hour, and then went and played cash. But there's a couple people who busted out who won a bounty or two, and then they rebought because they're like, it's kind of like a discount. So I think the bounty is great. I think next time, I think Tommy said we're going to do Big O bounty, like a $400 buy-in with a $15K guarantee and a $100 bounty, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it went overall. It went really well.
Mm-hmm.
So did you? What kind of action did you get on the tournament? Was it like tough action? Was it soft? Was it locals? And by the way, hello Thorin.
What's up, Thorin? We had a good mix. I mean, like I was mentioned to you before. I mean, we had one player who literally it was his first ever tournament. He didn't know the game. I mean, he was trying to learn, which is great. We definitely encourage people to try tournaments out. But we also had some good locals. I mean, the guy that I ended up playing eventually heads up with, Steve. He's a Vegas grinder. He's been living here since 2012, so he was a really tough opponent. I was fortunate to have a pretty sizable chip advantage heads up. So
3-1 chip advantage is what it started out at.
And
so.
I don't think he really even would have had a winning hand heads up. So I mean, I already had the chip advantage, and then I just kind of leaned on, and the blinds were pretty high. So, but it was a good mix.
Now I have a question for you that I haven't asked you yet.
Mm-hmm.
But was there any discussion about chopping when you guys got down to 3-handed or heads up or anything like that?
So I had the thought in my head, but I think if you're someone like we are that knows we're going to be playing WSOP events and these bigger buy-in events down the road, these smaller buy-in events really present a great opportunity to get that short-handed play, right? Because I mean, I don't really play heads up. We play a little online, but I don't really ever play super short-handed. So I don't have a ton of experience playing 4-handed, 3-handed heads up. So that experience that you gain is really going to be super valuable to you down the road. So I had the thought, but when we were 3-handed, we were all pretty even. There wasn't a huge disparity in pay jumps. So
did either of the players, Steve or the other player, did they say, "Hey, do you guys want to chop"? No. Okay.
No.
So, well, the nice thing is was the guy in third place? Was he a grinder? Because I know he played cash and he ran bad on cash. He wasn't playing bad. He ran bad. But
yeah. He he looked like a regular. I mean, he played cash a couple days ago. So no, there wasn't any talk about chopping.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that I talk about: poker theory versus poker reality. Poker theory, especially in a small tournament that had like 30, 40 people in it, those are ideal tournaments for people who are trying to gain that experience of final table experience to play. Because when you do get down to like 5-handed, 6-handed, and like say for example it's 6-handed and only pays 5 spots, you don't pay the bubble, and you start really understanding ICM implications with every single hand that you play. Now there is a specific hand that you said you wish you recorded but you didn't when you had a specific hand. Why don't you tell everybody what you had and why you folded, or I shouldn't have said that, but why you did what you did, and obviously how it helped you throughout the tournament.
Yeah, so we were down to the final table, and the player to my left was Steve, who I eventually played heads up with. But I was the chip player with 170K in chips. There was only about 800K chips in play, so I have about a fourth of the chips. He's the next biggest stack with 120, and then really there's a bunch of people like 70K and under. So he's the one player that can really affect my stack. So I opened with ace, king, king 10 single suited to the ace, pretty strong hand in the cutoff. And then he goes ahead and repops me to, I don't know, like 40, 45K or something. He's got about 120 total. So at that point, like I said, he's the one player that can really affect my stack, and it doesn't really make sense for me to get involved with him. It's a bounty tournament, so it makes sense for me to kind of pick off the shorter stack. So I ended up folding, and he asked me if I wanted to see the hand, and he eventually showed ace, king, queen. So I mean, obviously he had me in horrible shape, and that was a situation that I was telling Josh that maybe a couple years ago when I was newer with tournaments, I probably would have just said, well, he's on the button. He's not really supposed to have aces here, even though it's a possibility. I'm blocking aces, right? We've all been there. We say, oh, we're blocking aces, and then, you end up in worse shape because one of your cards is essentially dead. So I ended up folding, and, I got away basically as cheap as possible with kind of a setup hand.
Well, and you have to factor if the guy raises to 45 and he started off with 120, so he's going to have 90 after the flop. So you're going to be left in a situation where you're in a 1-to-1 SPR, and that's just a situation you don't want to be in, especially when he's really the only person that can hurt your stack. So in situations like that, you can say, well, everybody else is super small. I'm chip leading. He's second in chips. I can probably just get rid of this hand and just, quote unquote, pick a better spot. Mujitsu, the issue with being shorthanded in a big final table situation is not the amount of money involved, but the amount of buy-ins you can win with each pay jump. I would agree with that. And what's up, Bob? Dylan, thank you on the opening. Bob actually joined us in Vegas for a couple of weeks when we rented a big house, or not we, but the club, the Madhouse, rented it out for us, and ended up joining us. And Bob's a great guy. Thank you for tuning in. Rob, got down to Maryland for a few days, lots of 5-card PLO, got 6th in the horse. Do you ever go to the Northeast? Excellent question, Rob. The challenge that we run into with the Northeast is vlogging. They don't, they are still like in the 80s. They don't want you to record anything. They're worried that you're going to come in and rob the casino, and they just don't really understand it. I've reached out to what's the casino in like Connecticut or New Jersey?
Foxwoods,
Atlantic
City.
I've even talked to the guy at Foxwoods. Stressed to him, hey, we're vloggers, and let me tell you, first of all, they're super nice. They're like, hey man, we'd love to have you guys, but you just can't record anything. And it's funny because Greg Goes All In just did a short this morning, or maybe it was yesterday, about British Columbia Casino, because Greg's from Canada. Invited him to do a meetup game and then told him that he couldn't record any of the footage. And he was just like, WTF, like, what's going on with that? Like, so I mean, we could probably do a meetup game, but they'd probably be like, you can't record anything. And we'd be like, that's
what's the point?
I mean, the point is obviously to meet the fans and the viewers, but like, you guys want to be on the vlog. I think that's cool. Like, when people see more content on the felt. I agree, Jose. And one thing I will tell you is I have a video editor, which is something that I didn't have. Last night, it was really interesting. I had these Ray-Ban Meta glasses. I'm not endorsing them or anything. I was trying them out because I have to try out these Google glasses too. But I could record a hand with them, which was really cool. The only downside is they only record 3 minutes. So that $3,200 pot that I had, I literally have everything but the river and then a photo of the river. But
vlogging problems.
Yeah, vlogging problems when your sunglasses only allow you to record for 3 minutes. But one thing I will tell you, with having a video editor, it was nice because I could download the video right to my phone and then send it straight to them right away. And so you're going to see a video for the tournament, probably, and the cash game by next Monday, not tomorrow, because we do have to travel home. And then same thing with me. You're going to see at least one vlog, maybe 2, but probably one vlog of cash game analysis on the felt. We have a due date that we have to get it out by Monday, so we're going to get it out by Monday. You can count on that. Cash games are it. Yeah, we're definitely going to be doing cash games. I'm down in Cherokee, North Carolina. By the way, they do have a good PLO game in Cherokee, North Carolina when the circuit is in town. WSOP circuit event. Definitely will catch up with you boys soon enough. Thanks, Bob. We appreciate that. I hope you run good. Philly and Maryland have taken over the PLO scene.
Yep.
Yeah, and they do a lot of PLO 5, and what I found is PLO 5 tends to be really juicy for the first, 4 to 6 months. And then afterwards, it's hard because you end up with people who are playing super tight. And I'll give you an example. I was coaching one of my students this morning who went over a hand with me where the board was 6-4 jack with 2 diamonds. The turn puts out a deuce of clubs. So there's 2 clubs and 2 diamonds out there. He has 3-5 with queen high diamonds. So he check pots it and with the nuts with somewhat of a redraw, but it ends up being real tight. because those are situations where he was like, well, somebody potted it. Should I even raise there or should I just call? It's like, well, you have the nuts and you do have some kind of redraw. You should be putting in more equity. But the challenge with PLO 5 is even if he hit his flush on the river, he still might not be good. Because it just becomes a little bit more of a challenging situation where the game usually runs good for 4 to 5 months. The grinders eat up all the fish go away, and then you have grinders against grinders. Like we played PLO 5 in Hollywood, and by the way, Hollywood is doing a tournament series champion thing, which was really cool. But when we played it in Hollywood, even though it was a bigger game, it was 5-5-10. I kept going back down to 2-2. It was just like I'll go where the action is, and I've had people say, should I play PLO? Should I play Hold'em? What should I play? And I say, well, when you go into a poker room, you really should play whatever you're best at. That also is going to give you good action, because no one wants to go play PLO where everybody's check raising everybody and they're just waiting for the super nuts and shipping it. And or at least I don't want to. I mean, it's a different strategy, but it changes the game entirely. And it's just like, I'll give you another example, and this is called making adjustments. And yesterday I was playing a double board bomb pot. As you guys know, sometimes when I play double board bomb pots, what do I bet, Wayne?
You bet the min to try to feel it out.
I bet the min to feel it out. So there are several times where I'm betting $10, and there was like a guy that did it like 2 or 3 times in a row where he would check pot. Well, if I'm betting 10, and by the time he gets back to you, your check pot's like 120, you're out of position, you're declaring what your hand is. Like one board was like 10-9-4, and the other board was something. I basically had an overpair with a dry ace, because there was 2 hearts out there. And the turn put out a heart on the one board, and then it paired the bottom pair on the other board, and then he checked. And I was just like, well, I know you can't call. All you have there is a set where the hearts got there, because if you had a set when the other board paired, you just rip it. You just try applying max pressure. But because he was out of position and he check raised, he just displayed his entire hand. Now, I didn't have a flush on the one board. I literally just had an ace blocker. But I had an overpair compared to the other board. And I'm like, well, if he's got 9s or if he's got 10s, I'm beating him with my queens. So I potted it for, I think it was like $400. Because we went 3 ways to the turn, and he ended up mucking it. But it's one of those things where you have to make adjustments if you're playing against people who do like to check pot all the time. Most PLO players, especially if they're recreational players, don't make that adjustment fast enough. But if you're a grinder, you do make the adjustment, but it's not as fun of a game as people being like, yeah, let's get it in. That's just my opinion. PLO 5, draw to the nuts. I agree. I think that's about it. Charles is logged in. Yigdri. Hello, Charles.
Yep, SHRPO. Yeah, at Hollywood. I mean that's also a really great spot if you like mixed game tournaments. Maybe you know PLO, you know some of these games, but you've never played tournaments. I mean, that's really a great place to play because they're smaller buy-ins. They're all like usually between like 400 to 600 to start. They have some 1100s later in the series, but 400 to 600. They're all one-day tournaments.
Plus, the nice thing with $400 and $600 buy-in tournaments, you get the guy like we had yesterday, where it was his first tournament of PLO, which is great. Yeah. How do you feel about the reshuffle feature? You're talking about ACR. Ooh, I got a lot of problems with that. I think I'm going to do a live vlog when I get back and just talk about online poker. Because about 50% of my action comes from online. And I have a student that I coach regularly on the reshuffle feature. I have a lot of issues with it. He showed me a hand history, true story, showed me a hand history where the ace of diamonds came up 4 times. Four times in one hand. Because when you muck it, it immediately gets shuffled back in, and on ACR they have you can't see your cards yet. So it gets shuffled back in, and it's not the true shuffle from the word go. When they muck it, if the first player mucks the ace of diamonds, it can be dealt out to the very next player. So, I mean, it's nice that ACR is trying to combat bots and collusion. Fix your safety. Like, you just fix your programming, fix something to where that just doesn't happen. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the reshuffle feature, but I understand why they do it. But here's the problem: if you're online, if the place where you play online is something that you're so worried about colluding and bots and AI, you should probably play somewhere else online or don't play online. Okay, and this is something I talk about a lot. What up, Sean? This is something I talk about a lot, but AI, artificial intelligence, they sell software programs out there, and they're anywhere from like $200 to $800. I've looked at them. Why do I look at them? Because I half my action comes online, and I want to be secure as possible. The one question I ask every AI engineer is, can your AI figure out over 250 bigs? And they say no, they can't. And they all recommend, well, just buy in for 100 bigs, and when you get up to 250 bigs, leave. And so the problem that I have with a lot of online sites is the max buy-in is 100 bigs, which means you're susceptible to AI. And not only are you susceptible to AI with doing ghosting and multi-screening, you can have AI actually play your hands for you. And yeah, if you have to worry about reshuffling the cards and collusion and it's that prevalent, you should consider playing somewhere else. It's just my opinion.
That's good advice.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's about it. If you guys have any questions for us, okay, AI is still very much in its infancy. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and shoot them. We're going to stay on for maybe 3 or 4 more minutes. It's nothing like what you see in Hollywood films. Okay, I'm not going to disagree with that, but AI, when it comes to cards online, Mujitsu is quite significant. That's also the reason why I do like Big O online, is because that's a little bit harder to, I guess, for AI to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
We know a great online place to play. Yes, we do, Charles. That's for sure. So, but yeah, any other questions you guys have? We'll let it go for about another minute, and then we got to check out. I have the red-eye flight back to Chicago, and then get to drive up to the UP, which is awesome. And the life of a grinder.
Yeah, a lot of travel.
It's a lot of travel. I think we spend probably 60 to 90 days, easily 60. I think we spend about 90 days, a fourth of the year in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we've even looked at real estate in here because we spend a fourth of the year here.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't find anything that's reasonable. Next event out there, one more time, please. So we're going to be out there. We're going to be out here September 12th and 13th for a meetup game, for Wayne's meetup game. And, of course, I'm going to be here with him, supporting him. But, yeah, the 12th and the 13th is when...
I think the 13th is a Friday. Yeah, we'll probably be here. I think we check in the 12th. We'll be there through that Sunday. So, yeah, we'll probably play Cash Thursday, Cash Friday. We're going to talk to Tommy and get the exact...
specifics on a Big O tournament.
But there's probably going to be a tournament usually around noon on that Saturday, and then, you know, as people bust out of the tournament, Cash to follow. So yeah, that's the next weekend. And then of course December's the big one with you know, WPT and a bunch of other stuff in town. So yeah, and then again, if you guys are either in town or visiting, you can either contact Josh or myself. We have a WhatsApp PLO mix, you know, group chat, just to try to coordinate games. I mean, Friday is going to be the day that a lot of the regulars said that they can play this game. So, but we'll see kind of what they say.
Rob says real estate is tanking and it'll be cheaper. I hope it'll be cheaper in Vegas, because I'd like to buy a place out here with as much as we come, and then just Airbnb it when we're not here. I want to learn triple draw. Advice. I would love to start a mixed game 8-16 out here in Chicagoland, but need help. Thoughts. First of all, they had an 8-16 mix here, interest list, which was really cool. And I think they might have gotten it on opening night. But as far as Chicagoland, so I would probably reach out to one of the charitable groups. There's Chicago Charity Group. There's Rockford Charitable Group. I don't know if Rivers would do an 8-16 in Chicago. The Horseshoe might, but I don't know if you're going to get people to go to that side of the city anymore, especially with the poker room not being open 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd probably reach out to either Chicago Charity Group or Rockford Charity Group. And for those of you who are familiar with charity groups or in the Chicago area, you know, they had a bad reputation. They're the ones that had but they fixed it. I'm trying to explain that right now. They're the ones that had a tournament during COVID where they couldn't pay you out in cash, so they paid you out in silver, and then they had a silver dealer that wanted to buy it back from you and then charge you a fee. So the price pool wasn't really the price pool. They've replaced all of that. They don't allow the players to touch the cards, because we've done a couple of meetup games there, and I remember somebody was like, oh, they were having the players shuffle the cards for the dealers in between hands. They don't do any of that anymore. That would be a huge red flag. But I'd reach out to either Chicago Charity Group or Rockford Charitable Games, and just say, hey, I want to do an 8-16 mix list, and they would probably get you started on that. And as far as advice on triple draw, don't leave home without a deuce. If you haven't watched my triple draw video, that's one of the key things, is don't leave home without a deuce. Would you rather have double suited but not to the nuts, or single suited to the nuts? That's a great question, Andrew. I'm going to let Wayne answer that one, and then I'm going to answer it.
I prefer to have a single suit to the nuts. Usually, in my opinion, most people are going to play PLO way too wide. So when you're playing in a normal nine-handed game, people are going to play way too wide. So you're going to typically go to flops, 4, 5, 6, sometimes even more. So those non-nutted suits often become more blockers, whereas opposed to the nut suit, you kind of know when you're calculating your outs, like someone makes a big bet and you have to decide to either call or go with it. Okay, I'm drawing to the nut flush, I have the nut wrap, those outs are clean, I'm going to have the nuts. Whereas with those like middling suits, 10 jack high suits, you don't really know. You might say, okay, I have this out for a straight, it's non-nutted straight, this out to a non-nutted flush. You just really don't know, and usually, in a full ring, you're going to be drawing second best. So I prefer this. A double suited is nice. I would say the double suited combinations go up in value as you get shorter.
Short stack or short players?
Short players.
Yeah. So my answer was, it depends. If you're playing and you get 6, 7 ways to a flop, I prefer a single suit to the nuts. But if you are in position and you can 3-bet or 4-bet, depending on what your hand is, because some hands like 7, 8, 9 jack is 7, 8, 9 jack double suited is a good 4-betting hand. But if you can get it to where it's only 2 or 3 ways to the flop, I prefer double suited. But in most PLO games, especially on the lower stakes, like a 1, 2, 5, I would prefer to have the suited nut draw almost every time. But if you're in a table that's a little crazy and somebody's opening a way too wide and you've noticed it, and you can start 3-betting and 4-betting and trying to isolate them a little bit, I would prefer to have double suited in those situations. So we have a late checkout. Thank you.
They're trying to kick us out.
Yeah, they're like 11 o'clock. They better get out.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all. Professor, favorite blog, going after an old timer that didn't take your drink. Epic. Oh my God. You're talking about in Hollywood. I got a lot of guff for that. And I had some of you guys were like, you really need to take that down. That's kind of embarrassing or shameful. And I said, you know what? I'm human. I make mistakes. Obviously, I gave the guy a lot of shit. There is some other things in there that I didn't put in there, but whether you thought it was right or wrong, for the viewers, I put it out there. If you think it was a mistake, I'm human and I'm capable of making mistakes. Thanks for the video, fellas. Last question. Best text for a rank amateur to PLO to be a break-even 1-2 player at PLO.
Best test for a rank amateur.
I'm not sure what that means, Ohio World. If you could clarify, but probably best way for an amateur PLO player to be a break-even PLO player. Always play hands where you're drawing to the nuts. I mean, that's kind of the thing. That's why I like pocket nines and better. And there's situations where obviously you should be playing higher than pocket nines, but pocket nines are kind of like the bare minimum. And keep in mind, it's not an end-all, be-all thing. This is one of the things my haters tell me about. Oh, you tell people to play pocket nines, you make all the games soft. No, that's the minimum when you're starting off, and then you can make adjustments as you play and as the table plays, because you can find out that people will rip it into you with an overpair from time to time, in which case some of those middling pocket pairs might be a little bit more valuable. But I would say the biggest thing, if you want to start profiting in PLO, is always, not always, but be drawing to the nuts. You want hands that can be nutted on the river. That's probably my biggest advice. Charles or Yigdri, don't forget to shuffle through the mini bar in the fridge before you go. All expired item labels should be, they give you a discount for letting them know. All right, interesting.
Good strategy.
Artistic gold, not a mistake. Okay.
He's probably saying the drink thing, I guess.
Oh.
What you were just saying before about the drink at Hollywood or something?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think it was a mistake either, but I had some people who gave me some flack about it, and they told me I should take it down, and I said, well, if you think it's a mistake, I think I should keep it up there to show people who might be like, oh, this guy's such an asshole. Look at him chew out this old guy. Now, here's what I'll tell you. Clarence is an old-time grinder. He's been playing professionally for like 20, 25 years. I know that based on a lot of the things he was doing. And here's one thing I will tell you. Old school grinders, and when I say old school grinders, usually guys that are like 60, 70, somewhere around there, or they appear to be that age. For them, when they were growing up and they were cutting their teeth on the felt, it was like normal to angle shoot people. It was normal to do that. Same thing, like if you play with an old school grinder, I played with one like a year and a half ago that was playing like 300, 600 back in the 80s here in Vegas, and the dude was just nonstop talking. You know, that was something that was encouraged, that you could shit talk each other and you'd be like, oh, I know you don't have anything, blah, 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 blah. Now the rules are a little bit different where they're like, hey, don't say anything that's going to influence the action. But back in their day, it was kind of normal. So, I mean, I get it, but it's like, if you're a professional poker player, one of the biggest things I say is make adjustments. Make adjustments as the time goes on. That, hey, guess what? Angle shooting is not cool anymore. It's not normal, and it's pretty unethical, and you really shouldn't do it. And I've told you guys before, one of the biggest things that'll tilt me in the world is somebody who angle shoots. If you ever want to get me tilted, just angle shoot me. You can slow roll me all day. I could care less about slow rolling. Best book to help a player become a break-even player at PLO. Okay. Sorry, I received a text. I have hearing currently. So the best book to help a player become a break-even player in PLO.
I mean, I would recommend just, getting the reps. You just got to put the reps in. So, I mean, I think that my beginning videos would be good for you to check out, where I mean it's not really sexy, and it's not fun just to play aces and high rundowns, but pocket nines pocket nines or better, those hands are not really going to be hands that beginning players know how to navigate post flop as easily. So I mean it's much easier to start with, okay, when I'm starting out, I'm playing aces, I'm playing good kings, I'm playing high rundowns. If you pretty much say those are your three main hand groups you're playing, then as you get more comfortable and you build your roll, hopefully at the same time, then you can expand into okay, lower rundowns. Then I can play pocket nines or better. I can play some of these more marginal holdings because you know how to navigate. I mean, PLO is a post-flop game, so you would learn from your experience how to navigate better post-flop, and you'd be able to play these, weaker hands.
Yeah, and that's the advice that I give my students when they first start off is, you can play rundown hands like 3, 4, 5, 7, but when you're early in your career and you're early starting off, because you're not familiar with the bet sizing, and I can't stress bet sizing enough with SPR, stack to pot size ratio, you can play those hands, but early on in your career, I teach my students, don't play them early on until you get a little bit more experience. And the reason why is because you'll run into situations where the flop will come Jack 3-7, and you have 3, 4, 5, 7. And you're like, I got bottom 2 pair, I got a gut shot. This guy just bet a third pot. What the hell does that mean, right? Where when you become more experienced, you start realizing the 4 different bet sizes in PLO are basically a third pot, half pot, 2/3 pot, and pot. Somewhere around, I mean, that's basically, and they usually all mean something different. So the more experience you get, when somebody leads out for 66 or 75% pot or full pot, they're like, get out of here, I got a really good hand, where a set of jacks might do that, where somebody who might have even a middling wrap, 8, 9, 10 on a 3-7 jack board might be betting 1/3 pot. If they're really experienced and you're a super deep stack, they'll throw in a few curveballs. I did one of those last night where I made it 15 pre-flop. I had 5 callers. I flopped top set. I bet 30. and they didn't expect it. It was a super draw heavy board too, so I wasn't trying to blow up the pot, but that gives you a good idea. So I don't know about a book, but I would definitely say, yeah, get the reps in, and then try keeping it simple, like Wayne said: aces, kings, suited ace, rundowns, high rundowns, and then as you get comfortable, then you can start moving into some of the lower rundowns, some of the middling pocket pairs, because they do put you in tough situations. And when you're starting off, that's how you piss away all your chips. Is you have 5, 6, 7, 7, or you'll have like 5, 7, 7 jack, and you're like, well, I'm in the big blind, it's only another $10, I'll go ahead and call. And the next thing you know, the flop's like 7 jack queen, and you're faced with a pot size bet, and you're like, And again, it's player dependent, but it's one of those things when you're starting off early in your poker career for PLO. I would not recommend playing too many of those hands unless you're in position. In position is key. I teach my students that all the time. You can play anything on the button. And I think you guys have seen enough of my videos that I'll play anything on the button because that information you have is so damn valuable. Wayne, you referred to your video. Where on YouTube can I find your videos? Oh, Donkfish Poker.
Yeah, so obviously Josh and I are kind of at the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of what hands we play and hand selection, but yeah, Donkfish Poker. I think I've loosened up a little bit. Probably hanging out with Josh does that, but when you're starting out, as I mentioned, you just really don't know how to navigate post flop, right? Maybe you kind of have a hold'em mentality where typically one pair, a high pair and hold'em is usually going to take it down. That's not usually the case in PLO. There are exceptions, but you just don't know how to navigate these post flop situations with these weak holdings. So I recommend just starting with a very limited hand range and then kind of going from there.
And here's the other thing, just to let you know how much I've rubbed off on Wayne and how much Wayne has rubbed off on me. First of all, this is my 4th day in a row working out while in Vegas. I've never done that before. But not 4 days in a row. I have, but not in Vegas. But so Wayne rubs off on me that way, which is good. And then he makes sure I get sleep, and then I don't play on travel days, which are all positive EV things.
Yeah.
And then if you look at Wayne's first videos that he had, I mean, people, even said to me, they're like, well, he pretty much, you have ace, ace, king, queen, double suited. Oh, you limp re-raise all into your whole stack. What a surprise, which is what he was doing, but it was profitable. He would buy in for the minimum. I think it was like a 200 to 1K buy-in. He would buy in for 200, run it up to a comfortable amount. A comfortable amount's going to be different for everybody, and then leave. And I do tell my students, when you're starting off in PLO, you're going to reach a point where you're uncomfortable with how many chips you have in front of you. When you reach that point, get up, stop playing, don't play another hand, get up, rack, don't even get a hand while you're racking up. Just get up. If all of a sudden you bought in for 200 and you have 1800 and you don't feel comfortable putting every single chip in front of you in the pot, you need to get up. Because that's the game of PLO. There's going to be a time where you're going to have a dry ace, and it's going to be $900 in the pot, and you got 900 in front of you, and the only way you can win is by pushing all your chips in. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, get up. So to answer your other question, to go back, yeah, Wayne, if you watch his first videos, aces and stuff like that is pretty much what he was getting it all in. I think last year was the first time I saw Wayne get it all in with like Jack, Jack, 10, 9 and a PLO hand, and I went, and it was for like $350. I said, I'm wearing on you.
Everyone was surprised. I was at our Chicago meetup game, and even Jay, one of our subscribers, he was my opponent in that hand. He was like, wow, I did not think you were going to have jacks, and I ended up flopping top 7. I think
you ended up scooping on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's funny when you see the development of like all PLO players, I think, start off really, really tight, and then they gradually start understanding more chips just means more fun. And as far as answering, do I like buying in for the table min or the table max? For the most part, I like to buy in for the table max. I'm comfortable with deep stack poker. Last night I had like $4,000 in front of me or $3,000 in front of me. This other guy had like $3,000 or $4,000. Did you say he won 2 bracelets this year?
That's what. Yeah, he won the Badoogie and another one. His name's David.
Really good player. And yeah. I was initially directly to his left, and then I moved directly to his right. And right after I moved, I said, why am I doing this? He has the most amount of chips on the table, and here I am moving to his right, giving him position on me every single time.
Bad idea.
Yeah, it was a bad idea, but it was just I wanted to be in the 2 seat versus the 4 seat for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're starting off in PLO, buy in for what you're comfortable amount. What you're comfortable for. I do tell my students you should factor in 3 bullets. So if you buy in for 200, you should have 2 more backup bullets for 200. If you buy in for 500, you should have 2 more backup bullets for 500. Otherwise, yeah, if you do buy in for the max for 1,000, you should have 2 more bullets in for 1,000. Thank you for the beard and mustache appreciation. If you do have the ability to pressure your opponent by risking all your chips, you have too many chips in front of you to be comfortable with doing it, you need to get up and cash out. That is correct, Yigdri. That goes for online just as well as live play, just so you know. Trying to explain to people how 2-2 PLO is a bigger game than 10-20 limit. 2-2 PLO and 10-20 limit, if the 10-20 limit has a full kill and it's high only, they're gonna be decently deep stacked. The difference really becomes when limit and PLO are 2 different monsters. Limit is about equity, and there are times when you can bluff, but in limit it's just a completely different monster. I love limit. I'll tell you that right now. I love pot limit and I love limit. I absolutely, Wayne will tell you the 5100 OE is a game that I like to play. Here in Vegas, I guess it moved to South Point. I'd like to see the Venetian have like a nice 40-80 game or a nice 5100. I know Resorts has got an 81-60 game, but it would be nice if the Venetian does that. But I know they had some lists, earlier when they opened up. Love the green hoodie, thank you. Like my hairstyle, appreciate it. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, we're going to be here September 12th. Meetup game is going to be Friday the 13th, and and then we're going to have one in October and then one in December. But hopefully we'll see you guys there. And if you are in Vegas, we're going to talk to Tommy about posting a brochure with Wayne's number on it to get involved in the mixed PLO game that we're going to try establishing and running every Friday night, and I think it's probably going to go 2 times a week. Like once people get the hang of it with the small blind jackpot, they're going to be like, yeah, let's do this Friday and Tuesday or something like that.
Yeah,
so
it'll pick up.
But yeah, we appreciate it, guys. Now we got to check out and eventually go back home. So any last words you want to say?
Nope. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you guys hopefully next month.
All right, brother. Play smart. Run like a god.